And Golden Boy Promotions present a featured World Championship contest brought to you in association with the MGM Grand of Las Vegas, HBO pay-per-view, and your undisputed king of beers, Budweiser. Sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission Chairman John Bailey, Executive Director Mark Ratner. The three judges at ringside scoring this bout will be Raul Caiz Sr., Dwayne Ford, and Glenn Hamada. And when the bell rings, your referee in charge of the action, Tony Weeks. And now 12 rounds of boxing for the WBA IBF Featherweight Championship of the World. Introducing first, fighting out of the blue corner, wearing blue trimmed with silver, official weight 126 pounds, professional record 23 victories, including 15 knockouts, 8 defeats, and 2 bouts even. Damas y caballeros de Ciudad Obregón, Mexico, the mandatory challenger, Orlando City Salido. And his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the red corner, wearing black, trimmed with red, also weighing in officially at 126 pounds. His professional record, 42 victories, including 33 knockouts, with only 2 defeats and 1 draw. De Ciudad de Mexico, the reigning, defending WBA IBF Featherweight Champion of the World, Juan Manuel Marquez.
Ok, caballeros, ustedes recibieron sus instrucciones. Mira, aquí está bien, aquí no. Mira, aquí está bien, aquí no. Dale el cinturón para arriba. Yo quiero una pelea limpia. Escúchame, cuídate. Listos, vámonos. Vamos.
Just a final word about Oscar De La Hoya before we go into this fight. You may wonder why we didn't interview him and did interview Hopkins. It's he didn't want us to mention the hand situation in an interview. We opted not to do the interview because we felt that was the news and we had to address it. Because it was so late toward the fight, he felt that it would be a distraction.
So now round 1 begins, and Juan Manuel Marquez patiently waits for Orlando Salido to commit something so that he can begin to work off of it. Marquez laying a few jabs out there just to gauge the distance. Marquez is the kind of fighter, Manny, who can lead if necessary, but he would far prefer for the opponent to come to him.
Yes, like I say, he's normally a laid-back, patient-type fighter, but in this case here, Salido, which I expected to be much more aggressive than this, is fighting a very technical fight at the beginning of the fight here, and actually laying back and waiting quite a bit.
Well, he doesn't want to commit suicide as much as Marquez almost did in the first round against Pacquiao, when uncharacteristically he went after him and found himself on the canvas 3 times.
That was a miscalculation of either strength or speed. Marquez had it in his head that he was going to be the one to shock Pacquiao in the first round, and exactly the opposite is what happened. Hard right hand by Salido. Trying to drop the right hand in over Marquez's left hand, and this may explain why Salido has been laying back, hoping Marquez will come to him. He wants to try to counter over Marquez's jab.
For both of these guys, accuracy of punching is pretty much equal, and it's one unusual fight to see 2 guys that technically boxing almost with the same rhythm.
And
now Marquez gets a chance to fire the right hand down the middle as Salido feinted and then stood there. And the 1-2 lands for Marquez there. Salido threw a little counter in between, but just barely tapped Marquez with it.
Marquez is a little bit more aggressive in terms of throwing his power shots than Salido is at this stage. The right hand has been just barely missing.
Marquez tried in that last exchange the first body shot of the fight. Left hook to the body, but Salido was able to get his right elbow down and block it. Now he leads with the right. Marquez leads back with the right.
And that's why Salido is very, very tentative about coming forward, because Marquez is a very good counterpuncher.
Tactical first round. More contact for Juan Manuel Marquez.
Good work. Very good work.
Buen trabajo, Orlando. Buen trabajo.
You're doing very good. Let's get some Vaseline on
Buen
him.
trabajo, Orlando. Sabe que se puede ir a la lona en cualquier rato.
You know that he could go down right in any moment, so get to him.
Ok, ahí va el agua.
Come on, let's get some water.
Ahí va a echar el agua.
Voy a dar un tope o algo. Izquierda, derecha o por izquierda.
Hey, throw that uppercut. When he has his left hand out there, throw the uppercut. Are you all right? You're going to get him with a combination. Nice and easy, soft.
Our interpreter in both corners where they speak Spanish is Ray Torres.
Seems, Jim, that we have a bloodthirsty crowd here tonight. After watching a fight that lasted 33 seconds, they wanted another fast fight.
And this is a technical fight, and the distance that these two guys is fighting makes it pretty difficult for either one of them to be effective with body punching.
CompuBox numbers in the first round. Marquez 14 out of 44. Salido only 2 out of 20.
I think you're going to see a change in the fight as it goes on. It's going to get to be a much more intensified fight, I think, as the next round or two progress.
Salido continues in the mode of laying back and trying to make Marquez come to him.
And I think Marquez is going to step it up a little bit more if that's what he has to do to make a fight out of it, even at the risk of being caught himself coming in.
Winging right hand lands for Salido, and he stepped away, removing the chance for Marquez to counter. Marquez reaching over the top with the right. Salido still keeping his distance. Salido feinting forward, and Marquez taking advantage of the opportunity to jab. Now right hand lands for Salido. Marquez seems to want to answer every right hand with his own right hand.
Yes, and the gap is becoming a little closer now as the fight is progressing.
Big left hook for Orlando Salido. Marquez looked to counter the left hook, but Salido was gone again. Now a good right hand lands inside for Juan Manuel Marquez.
Both of these guys are very accurate punchers, and if one is not careful, it could end up just like the last fight that we saw, where the guys in exchange, one guy went down because they're both very compact punchers.
In case you weren't with us earlier, Kofi Jantua, with knockouts in 9 of his last 10 bouts, came in to face Marco Antonio Rubio of Mexico, who had 24 knockouts in a row. We expected a knockout. It came 33 seconds into the first round when Jantua landed a left hook on the jaw of Rubio, and Rubio got up at about the count of 15.
Mexican fighters often talk about their reverence for Julio Cesar Chavez, the great warrior, lightweight champion. But there are few and far between, and what we're looking at is more of the Americanization of Mexican boxing. More boxing, a little bit less brawling, and almost all of the big fights involving Mexican fighters now do take place in the U.S.
As well as their training.
No knockdown.
Ok, jala aire. Es el granito que te reventó, ¿no? ¿Te revelaste?
You'll want to mark your calendars for these upcoming fights. Next Saturday, my partner Roy Jones returns from his shocking upset at the hands of Antonio Tarver, taking on Glenn Johnson live on HBO. October 2, HBO pay-per-view. Felix Trinidad comes out of his 2-year retirement, taking on former welterweight champion, crazy man, Ricardo Mayorga. November 20th, undisputed 154-pound champ Winky Wright defends his title in a rematch against the man he beat in March, stubborn Shane Mosley. And November 27, HBO pay-per-view, Eric Morales against Marco Antonio Barrera for the 3rd time. Each has won once in their 2 classic confrontations. Let's see, I believe Barrera and Morales fought once at 122 and once at 126, and now they will fight once at 130. Third round of a scheduled 12. Juan Manuel Marquez so far picking his way through a tactical first 2 rounds against Orlando Salido and landing enough punches to appear to us, at least, to have won both of the rounds. And just as Emmanuel Stewart has suggested, Marquez begins to get a little bit more aggressive, tries to put a little bit more of his own imprint on the fight.
Yeah, Marquez is going to step it up regardless, even at the risk of being caught. To get back to something you were speaking of earlier, Larry, a lot of the Mexican fighters are training here in America now. Not only fighting here, but they're training here, so it's been a big difference in their style.
Now, what we're seeing really is a sort of homogenization of styles all around the world, right, guys? As more and more fighters from foreign countries come to train in the United States, and as more and more American fighters face off against fighters from other countries, more and more styles are being exchanged and translated, just as is the case in basketball.
Yeah, the world is becoming smaller.
And while Mexican fans may find it odd to watch 2 Mexicans in here artfully boxing against each other, it's bound to be an improvement in their overall program over a long period of time. Now they trade body shots for the first time in the fight, and that's a mark in and of itself that they're getting closer.
The distance is becoming closer. The exchanges are coming a lot more fierce now, and I think it's just a matter of time before they're going to end up going into some slugfest situations.
Is there no way that Salido could mimic what Pacquiao did to Marquez in their first round? Throw more big left hands?
Well, that was the case. To me, it was more of Marquez was going straight back, and being that Pacquiao was a southpaw, Pacquiao was hitting him with straight left hands continually. And after that first round, he seemed to move his head a little bit, and that just changed the whole course of the fight. Because Pacquiao didn't do too much other than throw a straight left hand most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing he noticed was that Pacquiao has a repeating motion. Jab, jab, left hand. Jab, jab, left hand. And once Marquez was able to see that that came over and over and over, he reacted to it in a far more positive way.
And it changed the entire fight.
Of course, Salido would have had to turn around into a southpaw stance to do exactly what Pacquiao was able to do to Marquez. So that equation doesn't exist.
And seemingly his favorite punches at this stage is his overhead right that he's shooting at Marquez, rather than a straight punch.
And already you can hear Marquez thinking, well, as the fight goes on, that right hand of his is going to wander wider and wider and wider in its arc. And I'm going to get a chance to land a left hook. Live shot of Bernard Hopkins as he waits in his dressing room for the biggest fight of his career. About 45 minutes away from the entrance into the ring for Hopkins and De La Hoya. Still to come tonight. Bernard not talking there, which is somewhat unusual.
Él apuesta a eso porque aguanta y es fuerte.
Yeah, he can take shots. So yeah, throw your combinations. Yeah. The uppercut, when you go to the body and then use that uppercut. And just watch out for the right hand. It's a long right hand. Be careful.
Here's something else unusual, Jim. Despite the story of De La Hoya's hand and the stitches, the odds have not reflected it. In fact, what was about a 2-to-1 favorite for Hopkins has drifted down as De La Hoya's fans come to town to about 8-5 the last we heard.
Well, the late rush of De La Hoya enthusiasm has even affected some media types. As a couple months ago, you couldn't find a boxing reporter who would pick De La Hoya, but a half dozen of them did so in a media poll that appeared here this morning. Harold Letterman, how do you have it scored through 3 rounds?
Okay, Jim. 3-0, 30-27. Juan Manuel Marquez. Jim, I don't know. Orlando Salido works his whole life to get a shot at the title, and then all of a sudden, he's fighting a very slow fight, very, very little activity. Juan Manuel Marquez walking him down, landing the better shots like that hard right hand that you just saw. So on clean, effective punching and aggressiveness, Juan Manuel Marquez 3-0.
Would you have expected Salido to try to do something much more aggressive than he's done?
If I worked that hard to get a title shot, I would have jumped all over Marquez.
Thank you, Harold. Emmanuel, would you have expected
completely.
something?
And Salido trains at the La Brea Boxing Gym in Los Angeles, where I'm right now presently training a lot of my fighters. And I saw him train with so much intensity and aggressiveness. It seems like he's really choked as he's gotten up to his big moment right now. And he's got nothing to lose, so he better let it all hang out.
Well, Marquez is a fighter who, particularly for Mexican fans and Mexican fighters, has a big and glorious image, so maybe it was intimidating to Salido just to get into the ring with Juan Manuel.
It could be, and don't forget, he didn't have much of an amateur background either, like a lot of the Mexican fighters. Now they're actually getting their amateur background by losing their first maybe 3 or 4 fights of their career sometimes.
It's interesting that Salido's trainer told him as he left the corner, be careful of Marquez's right hand. Marquez twice in this round has demonstrated that he thinks he's about ready to hurt Salido with a right hand.
Well, both guys better be careful of each other's right hand.
And Marquez caught Salido up and under with a hard right hand there. And he lands another hard right hand on the head of Salido.
When Marquez throws this, you can almost see him because he takes a really big step usually when he comes in and throws his right hand.
He's quicker with the left hook, as he showed there. Now Salido begins to move forward aggressively just a little bit more often. And Marquez keeps going in his clockwise direction, looking for an opportunity to throw the right hand again. Salido just a little bit longer with the jab.
Muy bien, sí.
Perfecto.
Correcto.
Este estuvo perfecto.
Correcto. No. Correcto, muy bien. Estás trabajando
You're
bien.
doing real good. You're working real good now.
Al salir, hay
When
que
you
salir
come
con las manos arriba. Acuérdate de salirte para un lado para que contragolpees. Para cuando se
After the conclusion of this telecast, stay tuned to this channel and you will be given a free preview of the Trinidad Mayorga fight to take place here, pay-per-view, October 2.
You won this round. Now we gonna you're gonna put your jab in there, and now you're starting. Your rhythm has got to increase, but real intelligently, real nice.
Do what you're doing, but do it faster and do it more, is the advice
from
to
Victor
Salido.
Barron. Victor Barron, Salido's trainer. CompuBox numbers through 4. Marquez, 45 of 172, working at a rate of 43 per round. Very slow. That's what he likes. Salido only 25 out of 117, averaging only 29 punches per round. And at 29 punches per round, what you look back and say later is, well, I froze. I didn't get off.
That's correct, and especially for some guys who are small like these guys, they should be throwing a lot more punches. But this is typical of Marquez, but for Salido, his image was to be an aggressive fighter. And I think his last fight that he won, which earned this fight, was a good fight that he had in Puerto Rico, where he was just a busy fighter, and out of throwing so many punches, he ended up knocking the guy out.
Yeah, I mean, whatever is the reasoning, if there is a reasoning for Salido to be fighting at such a slow pace, logic tells you you're playing into the hands of Marquez when you do it, because this is exactly the pace he prefers.
Marquez is one of those intelligent, laid-back type fighters, and if you make him fight faster than he's normally used to fighting, you can maybe take him out of his stream. But right now, the way that he's fighting a perfect fight for Marquez to relax and fight the way he wants to.
Occasional skirmishes amid long bouts of sizing each other up, feinting, firing one jab at a time. Salido winging the right hand over the top. Marquez saw it a mile away. Marquez catches Salido with a left hook on the top of the forehead. Salido goes in a couple times recently and ducks his head after he goes in, giving Marquez a chance to fire away it with whatever he wants.
But when Salido does open up, I've been impressed with him. He's a very good fighter. It just needs to be a little bit more busier. Good tight defense. Not bothered to get caught with big punches neither, as much as some of the other fighters I've saw.
Manuel, you think it's the big occasion or Marquez?
I think it's the occasion. He may have felt some of Marquez's strength right there in the first round, but I think Salido's getting a little bit more warmed up now, and the fight right now is going to be a much better fight for him. In fact, this is one of his best rounds. Maybe, Harold, it's his only round that he may win on your scorecard.
Well, his trainer told him that he'd won the last round, but I was thinking that perhaps Barron told him he won the last round just by way of encouraging him and trying to get his spirits up a little bit. And as the crowd here gets restless in the mid portion of the phony war between Orlando Salido and Juan Manuel Marquez, we'll begin to build up to the main event. Here's a look at Oscar De La Hoya's trainer, Floyd Mayweather Sr., who bashfully says of himself, "I'm the greatest trainer in the history of the sport." There's his professional experience, 9-1 as you see in title fights. The loss was in the second Shane Mosley fight with Oscar De La Hoya, and he trains De La Hoya, Mayweather Jr. previously, and Francisco Bojado now. Here's Bowie Fischer, Bernard Hopkins' longtime trainer. They were briefly estranged after Hopkins' giant win over Felix Trinidad in New York. Eventually they got back together, and you can see that outside of Hopkins, Steve Little, Ivan Robinson, Bowie Fischer has spent most of his life in Philadelphia with local fighters whose names you wouldn't know. By far, his biggest assignment in his life has been to train Bernard Hopkins ever since Hopkins exited the penitentiary 14 years ago.
Which is not an easy task because Bernard Hopkins likes to run his own show in and out of the ring.
Or it is an easy task because Bernard Hopkins has so much craft, so much ring knowledge, so much dedication, and so much professionalism that it's sort of autopilot to train him. In round 5, Orlando Salido threw 44 punches, his highest number in the fight, landed 5. Marquez was 11 out of 42, which is a pretty representative Marquez round.
It seems that Marquez is losing his initiative also.
Yeah, he's getting lulled into a fight, the same fight that, at least I say the same pattern and the rhythm and style that Salido is playing. But, you know, Marquez is a good puncher, though. And he's sitting back, you know, fighting his normal fight, whereas Salido has nothing to lose and needs to pick it up. And when you fight for the championship of the world, you try to take the championship from the champion. You don't try to win it. And as Salido's not fighting with that attitude, because when he does become more aggressive, it's really like 50-50.
He's making it easy for Marquez, who a minute from now or a minute and a half from now may well already have 6 rounds in the bank, and who doesn't look as though he wants to take any chances whatsoever tonight after having been forced to gamble against Pacquiao and having survived the experience. Marquez figures he'll take his next gamble when he gets into the ring with Pacquiao again.
And in these recent exchanges, as recently, Salido has landed just as much as he's taken.
But he hasn't landed a combination, really. And he hasn't landed anything big in rhythm.
No, neither one of the guys have been able to sustain any kind of good attack to maybe 2 or 3 punches in a row.
There's a hard right hand by Salido. Marquez answers over the top with a looping right hand.
Now, Salido seems to have a much more aggressive attitude right now. And if he continues this up, this could be a very interesting fight going down the stretch. Particularly, maybe he's gotten over the shakes, so to say, that he had at the beginning of the fight.
Unless the plan was to get going later in the fight.
Marquez pounding Salido to the body. One of the better body shots in the fight, and there haven't been many. There's a good 1-2 inside by Marquez as Salido missed and stopped. Marquez accurate, straight down the middle and firing through Salido's guard. Lands enough punches in the last 30 seconds of the round to seem once again to be the winner.
Just barely getting by, but the fight is getting to be a little closer now.
There's Manny Pacquiao. Pacquiao on the cell phone constantly, about 23 hours a day, incidentally. And yes, Manny, we're excited about seeing you back in the ring again.
I think he likes what he sees.
He's a strong fighter and a lively one. Close your eyes. Yeah, don't miss. Yeah, let's get some water. Come on, make sure when you attack him, you're doing something.
As we get ready to call the 7th round here, Emmanuel, you and I have been left alone by Larry Merchant. Larry has been dispatched to the dressing room of Oscar De La Hoya because we are told there is a momentary controversy about the wrapping of hands. De La Hoya apparently wants to have his entire hand wrapped. Mark Ratner, the executive director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, is telling De La Hoya he can only have part of the hand wrapped, the top of the knuckle and the back of the hand. What's your take on this?
I don't fully understand it. I've never heard of anything like that, so I can't comment on it right now. It doesn't make any sense.
What doesn't make any sense?
Well, having this whole hand wrapped, I mean, you always have your entire hand wrapped. It must be something else more than that. It could be a case of, once again, Oscar maybe wanting to have tape put maybe underneath the gauze before he puts a second layer of tape or something like that. But what he's saying right now doesn't make sense. Unless it's a case of having tape being put on the knuckle area also, instead of being normally 1 inch back behind the knuckle towards the wrist.
So the tape normally does not extend over the knuckle?
It does not extend. It's 1 inch back from the knuckle. Then going towards the wrist is where you start your taping at. In this case, he may want to have it to come down all the way over the knuckle part.
And to be honest, I may have phrased incorrectly exactly what I was told about the disagreement. We'll hope that Larry can find out more at the dressing room of Oscar De La Hoya about the hand wrap question. Meanwhile, here in round 7, Orlando Salido has continued to try to step up the pressure on Juan Manuel Marquez.
And for the most part, I think he's been effective when you consider the quality of a fighter that Marquez is. I think Salido's doing very well now. It's what he should have started doing in the first round or two.
Salido fires his right wide. Marquez's right is partially blocked. Salido working much, much harder now to try to get inside on the fighter who holds the World Featherweight Championship. Many see Pacquiao as the people's champion of the featherweight division because of his rousing victory over Marco Antonio Barrera in San Antonio in 2003.
And he has such a great, exciting style, too. Fights with so much energy.
Barrera was a guy who consciously avoided having certain title belts, left those belts aside and allowed Marquez to gather them, and that's why Marquez remains the official champion of the division.
In the last 3 rounds, since Salido has picked up the pace and the intensity, the fight has been pretty much even. And those rounds that he was going in the beginning is probably going to be the big factor right now in him possibly losing a decision.
If you were looking for a round to give to Salido, in fact, that might have been your choice right there, as he got in a couple of body shots down the stretch against Marquez.
No hay problema.
You win in the fight. Yeah, we got five more rounds, but you need to put some pressure. But you win in the fight, undoubtedly. Yeah, the same thing you're doing, just a little bit more pressure. Just a little bit more pressure. You win in the fight. Even if the crowd is booing, you still win in the fight. Don't worry about them. Yeah, but don't let them get the upper hand. Come on, real smart, real quick.
Well, Emmanuel, apparently both fighters are winning the fight because that's what their corners have told him. CompuBox numbers in round 7. Marquez was 13 out of 50. Salido 9 out of 60. It's the highest number of punches that Salido has thrown in a round in the fight, and he has thrown more punches than Marquez in each of the last 3 rounds.
And I think the last 3 rounds have been pretty much toss-up rounds, which, according to most judges, they would have a tendency maybe to give them to Salido because comparing them to the other rounds, even though he may not have won them by big margins.
Marquez's trainer, Nacho Beristain, is about as experienced as any trainer in the sport. Longtime trainer of Mexican legend Daniel Zaragoza.
Ricardo Lopez has worked with so many other great Mexican fighters. And definitely one of the best trainers in boxing today.
Very cerebral man, very low-key, never overexcited. A little nervous perhaps after the first round of the Pacquiao fight. Left hook to the body, left hook upstairs by Marquez. Now he lands a solid right hand. As Salido was a little wide with the left, and Marquez made him pay. Marquez blocking the right hand with his left glove. Hard body shot with the right. First 2 minutes of this round have clearly belonged to Marquez.
Marquez, this is Marquez's best round in the last 4 rounds.
Stepping up the tempo a little bit, seizing the initiative. Salido firing low and wide to the body. Marquez with the straight right hand upstairs. Every time Salido throws his right, Marquez wants to throw his right hand right back at it.
Marquez is much more accurate with his punches right now, and especially his counter punching. His punches are pinpoint. He's landing much more accurate.
Marquez again effectively blocking Salido upstairs with his gloves. Now Salido manages to get to Marquez's body. Marquez just missing with an uppercut that would have strafed Salido's face. But that was a very good round for Juan Manuel. And now let's go to Larry Merchant to find out more about the hand wrap controversy. Larry.
Thank you, Jim. I'm with Dr. Biff McCann, who is the surgeon with the team of Oscar De La Hoya. Would you explain to us first what happened to his hand and what you had to do to it?
Well, they were cutting the tape off his hand, and the scissors caught him just like that. Created a V-shaped cut right here. They called me, I believe it was Wednesday night, and I just took him up to my office and closed his wound.
How many stitches?
11.
Would this affect him in this fight?
It shouldn't. It's in the place it is in his palm. It's not going to cause him any discomfort.
He had to take a painkiller that is illegal. Is that out of his system?
It should be.
Has he taken any painkillers to your knowledge since that time?
Not to my knowledge.
There was a dispute just moments ago about the hand wrap around his hand. Would you describe it?
Well, it's my understanding there was some swelling related to the injection that I performed whenever I sewed his laceration, and they were concerned about taping all the way over that. I don't think it's a major problem, honestly.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Jim?
All right, thanks very much. So it sounds, Emmanuel, as though Oscar did not want for the tape to go over the swollen area around the cut, and perhaps Ratner was saying, no, it's supposed to be wrapped all the way around.
I don't know. I interpret it as being the other way. I thought he wanted it wrapped up, and they didn't want it. I don't know. But anyway, I don't think it's going to be that major of a factor, because the cut, if it's on the inside, as they said, it's not going to be damaged by the impact of blows landed as much as if it had been on the outside.
Round 9 of a scheduled 12. Orlando Salido still occasionally looking for opportunities to be disruptive and try to threaten Juan Manuel Marquez's position atop the featherweight division of the sport, but all too infrequently, basically, in order to get anything done, as Marquez has managed to remain mostly in control via his counterpunching skill and his control of the tempo of the fight.
He's controlling the fight, and now that Salido...
And there's a headbutt.
Now that Salido has picked up his pace and has become more aggressive, he's also crossing his legs and losing his balance a lot as he throws punches, and Marquez is beginning to lay back and take advantage of that.
Marquez quicker, countering inside, landing another right hand right on the chin of Salido, and there's another good hard right hand over the guard. Both by Juan Manuel Marquez in the black trunks with red trim. Marquez landed by CompuBox count 100 punches in the first 8 rounds, 57 for Salido. They're fighting at a pace at which both fighters are throwing an average of about 40 to 45 punches per round. That's right in the groove with what Juan Manuel Marquez likes to do. Salido has been throwing 70 to 80 punches per round in his previous fights against lesser opponents.
But I will say this, even though they're small guys, they're throwing a lot of power punches. Once again, you can see Salido's balance gets bad when he throws his right hand often. He walks his right foot through, and he does that a lot. Marquez takes that little step back and takes advantage of it with counter punches.
Marquez seems perfectly content to work his way through a dull decision here if necessary.
Salido's still a dangerous puncher himself.
All the more reason. In one of our earlier conversations, you heard Larry Merchant talk about how off-form Oscar De La Hoya appeared against Felix Sturm here on June 5. There's a look at the body that De La Hoya brought into the ring in his first appearance in the middleweight division against Sturm, June 5. It was too soft. And after very hard work in the gym and work with a brand new nutritionist, there's a look at what De La Hoya looked like at the weigh-in yesterday. But of course, Larry, he also took the advice of a lot of people in boxing who said, just because you're fighting a middleweight doesn't mean you have to weigh 160 pounds.
That's the Krispy Kreme De La Hoya versus the low carbohydrate De La Hoya. You know, great fighters like Sugar Ray Robinson, Emil Griffith fought and won the middleweight championship in the low 150s.
Carmen Basilio. There are, all in all, there are 6 different men who have moved up from the welterweight division to win the middleweight championship.
It's interesting that Oscar said that for this fight, his body fat was, I think, 4.8, and for the fight with Sturm, it was 11.
And that's what we were looking at right there. Harold Letterman, how do you have it through 9?
Okay, Jim, 88 to 83. 7 rounds to do. 1, Manuel Marquez. Jim, I got to tell you, to me, it don't look like the same Marquez that fought Pacquiao. You know, backing up constantly, landing one hard shot, just enough to win a round. Salido got a little bit busier. I gave him rounds 5 and 7 strictly on aggressiveness and the fact that he did get in, a few decent shots. But it's been Marquez landing the harder, more damaging blows going back, but not impressing because he's fighting that dull counter-punching style.
And if he's not the same guy who fought Pacquiao, I would submit it's because he doesn't have to be, at least not so far.
I think that Salido's maybe a little bit better fighter than maybe we're giving him credit for. He's not that easy to hit. Good balance, punches good himself, and it seems to me justifies being one of the top featherweights in the world too.
He's landed 3 or 4 clean punches on Marquez in the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think it's a lot to do with Salido more so than just the fact that Marquez is not fighting a good fight. Right there is a good example. As soon as Marquez made a mistake and was off balance, Salido took good advantage of it.
In building himself into a good fighter and a title contender despite having had 8 losses in his career, Salido has worked hard in Los Angeles to improve his skills and his technique, but he's never had a knockout past the 9th round. So if he were able to reel in Marquez and knock him out here, it would be the first time he had done that in his career.
Yeah, Marquez landed a tremendous left uppercut and right hand on the chin of Salido just a few seconds ago.
And there's a hard right hand over the top by Marquez. You would think that Salido could see it coming and get a left hand up to block it, but no. And there's another hard right hand by Marquez and a left hook up inside that landed on the chin. Marquez getting a little bit more aggressive down the stretch now of round 10.
As you were saying, going into the late rounds here where Salido's not had that much success with knockouts, that's where the experience may pay off, and Salido may become a little bit more wider, a little bit more careless with his punches and get caught.
Well, he's being more aggressive now, and Marquez is very comfortable in this style.
Well, that's what makes a great fighter to me, is the ability to fight while you're tired. Because I don't care how good a shape you get in, you're going to get tired and fight still. And the champion fighters like Ali and Leonard and all those guys and Hagler, they could fight while they were still tired. They could still function.
There's still a protective cocoon around Oscar De La Hoya's dressing room. But Bernard Hopkins allowing our camera to come in and observe him as he sits still and quietly watches the television screen in front of him, mentally preparing for the biggest fight of his career. And we mentioned that the referee for the bout is getting his first mega fight assignment, 54-year-old Kenny Bayless. What I say, you must obey. He has worked his way into this position through long apprenticeship here in Nevada, 10 years, 18 title fights. Notable fight, Jones versus Tarver, the first time around.
That was a tough one to call.
A tough one to referee?
Well, it was in its own way, yeah. It was so surprising. A lot of work on the ropes where Jones was. You know, it was between rounds of a fight about 3 years ago that Salido found out via cell phone that his wife had just given birth.
She's pregnant again.
But not that pregnant.
So we don't expect such a call to be coming tonight.
If she made a call, it would be, Orlando, throw some punches.
Well, he landed a hard right hand to open this round after Marquez had a very good round in the 10th. We've been taking care of other business between rounds, so we can't be sure whether Salido's trainer is still telling him that he's winning the fight. If so, he's probably not doing the fighter any favors.
Maybe Marquez is in the same mode that Bernard Hopkins was in his last fight
against Robert Allen.
Because he knows that early next year he's going to get a rematch against Pacquiao. Just want to make sure he wins this one.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. I think Marquez has determined that the next risk he takes will be the first risk he takes against Pacquiao in their second fight.
This has been a golden age of featherweights with Morales and Barrera, Marquez, Pacquiao. Before that, Kevin Kelly. A lot of wonderful featherweights in the last decade.
Salido throwing wide, Marquez firing a 4-punch combination up the middle. The guy who throws them straight is usually going to win the exchanges.
I didn't include Prince Ahmed in that number, although he was very entertaining for a while. But we hear he's coming out of retirement next year. Manuel, what do you know about it?
Yeah, I was told that too. I think he's became a little bit jealous of the publicity that's going with this boy, Amir Khan, who fought so well in the Olympics representing England. But Ahmed, I have to give him credit. I think he and Kevin Kelly were the two that really started getting the attention for the featherweights and the smaller guys with the American public. And so everything else seemed was a spin-off from that. But Ahmed was a very, very colorful fighter for a while.
Manny, surely a grown man like Prince Nassim wouldn't fall prey to a silly emotion like jealousy.
Want to bet?
Just kidding.
You got to close these rounds fast. You got to be aggressive. Roll over this guy. Come on, you got to be protected. He hasn't hurt you. You win in the fight. Be quick. Put pressure. Be quick. Yeah. Come on, let's close nicely.
Mírate de la derecha toda. En el centro, el ritmo que vayas de ahí, combinaciones.
Vamos, todo para ti.
Come on, everything for you now, so you got to do it.
In round 11, it appeared to me at least that Salido had his best round of the fight, and now Marquez has a swelling under the left eye and a bump above the left eye from hard punches that Salido landed in the last round. And Marquez seems willing to go to war a little bit if Salido wants to throw, as he does. Suddenly the light has gone on for Salido, who realizes this is round 12. I think I'd better knock Marquez out.
You know what? It'd be interesting to see if this was a 15-round fight.
The phrase comes to my mind, too little,
too late.
Too late.
I'm going to tell you something. I've been still impressed with Salido. I think he's a better fighter than we're all giving him credit, and even the public, because we haven't heard of him that much. And he may be a big threat for someone like Pacquiao even.
Well, except that here's his chance to take a big step up, and it doesn't look as though he's going to come away with a win in this fight.
I agree with you. That's been a big problem.
So that'll probably diminish any chance he would have had to fight somebody like Pacquiao. The nature of the business is, once you get to this level, just win, baby.
You're supposed to let it all hang out. He fought, but you know, it happens a lot of time. The first fight for guys in the championship fight, and he hasn't had that much of a big career with the Olympics, and probably I don't think he even fought that many super fights or even main events even.
One thing you see over and over again in the sport is the importance of a real amateur career. It takes a long time to develop the right instincts to have real comfort in a professional prize fight ring.
And a lot of these Mexican guys, you know, the kids that are turning pro at 15 and 16, so they really may lose early fights. They're just really their amateur experience. That's why sometimes I even discount those losses when I see what they've turned pro at 15 and 16.
Salido once again gets in a couple of good pops against Marquez. Marquez countering himself. They trade punches in the center of the ring, and both guys landed a couple of good shots.
They're both getting with some good shots, but after all of the checks, I'm looking at Salido still keeps moving forward still. He's now finally got into his groove right now, but it's a little too late.
Salido had fought the entire fight the way he's fought the 11th and 12th. We'd have had some. Just look at how close he is now compared to where he was in the first 3 or 4 rounds.
It's a totally different fight now.
Solid left hook. Triple left hook.
Marquez is having to work for his victory tonight, though.
10 seconds to go. Both guys want to finish with a flourish.
Well, better late than never is the other phrase that trips off the tongue.
They went 12 rounds. And both fighters are going to be lifted off of their feet. But to my eyes, it would be a shock if Orlando Salido was within hailing distance of a decision in this fight. It appeared to me that he didn't do enough through most of the fight.
No, I don't think he won the fight, but he gave a great, credible performance tonight.
I'll certainly agree with Harold Letterman there that Salido won the 11th and the 12th. But even with the 11th and the 12th in his column, he winds up trailing 116-112 on the Letterman card. Judges in this fight are Raul Caiz Sr., 51 years old, out of California. It was easy to have Oscar De La Hoya leading Jimmy Bredal in the Olympic arena. Dwayne Ford, notable fight, Mosley De La Hoya 2. And that was the widest margin of victory for Mosley in that fight. And Glenn Hamada, who scored Trinidad De La Hoya a draw in what was a majority decision for Trinidad. Oh, the two judges in De La Hoya Trinidad were Bob Logist and Jerry Roth. A quiet night in the ring for Orlando Salido and Juan Manuel Marquez. Let's find out from Michael Buffer who won their featherweight title bout.
Ladies and gentlemen, we go to the scorecards here at the MGM Grand. Dwayne Ford has it 118-110. Glenn Hamada 117-111. Raul Caiz 117-111 for the winner by unanimous decision. Still the WBA IBF featherweight champion of the world, Juan Manuel Marquez.
A ho-hum unanimous decision for Marquez. And he strolls through a relatively unthreatening bout with Salido, who might have been a threatening opponent had he put more energy into it.
Okay, let's go.
Final CompuBox numbers: Marquez landing 59 more, Salido throwing 40 more at the end when he upped his activity level in the last few rounds. Marquez landing at a significantly higher percentage. Power shots: Marquez throwing right hands over the top and left hooks, landing a 33% rate. And Salido landing most of those power punches of his own in the last few rounds. Larry Merchant stands by with the winner.
Thank you, Jim. Congratulations, Juan Manuel.
Felicidades, Juan Manuel.
Were you surprised that he was boxing with you for so long?
¿Te sorprendió que él te boxeó por tanto tiempo?
No, no me sorprendió. Yo creo que esa era su táctica, pero yo creo que nosotros sabemos boxear y sabemos cuando nos quieren intercambiar golpes.
No, it didn't surprise me. That must have been his tactic, but we're boxers and we know how to handle it.
Were you being a little bit extra careful or cautious because you knew you could outbox him and you have a big rematch with Pacquiao coming up next year?
Estabas tú un poquito cauteloso, muy cuidadoso, porque sabías que podías boxearle y porque sabes que vas a tener una revancha con Pacquiao pronto el año que viene.
No, yo creo que la revancha con Pacquiao no me interesaba. Lo que me interesaba era esta pelea y salimos a boxear y a intercambiar un poquito de golpes, pero esa pelea era muy importante para mí.
No, the Pacquiao rematch wasn't in my mind. It wasn't that important. We knew where we had to box with him. This was the important fight.
Tell us again about you and your brother both having titles. It's very unusual for fighters at the same time to be at the stature that you two are. What is it like for the two of you?
Dinos algo sobre esto, el factor que tú y tu hermano, los dos campeones mundiales, cosa que no es muy frecuente. ¿Qué significa eso para ustedes?
Yo creo que esa carrera que tomamos del box, mi hermano y yo, es muy difícil, pero gracias a Dios somos campeones del mundo, nos lo merecemos, hemos trabajado mucho y ojalá eso sea para mucho tiempo.
We chose the boxing profession and we're both champion. We work hard on it, we're good, and we're champions.
How has your fight against Pacquiao, in which you had to display so much poise and courage, changed your career and how people see you?
¿Cómo la pelea contra Pacquiao te ha enriquecido a tu vida porque tú tuviste que mostrar tanta valentía y tanto coraje?
Yo creo que esa pelea me ayudó mucho para mi deporte del box. Mucha gente reconoció el valor, reconoció el boxeo y eso me da mucho gusto que la gente de box sepa de box.
That fight really has been fulfilling and real satisfying to me. A lot of people that know about boxing know that I'm a good fighter, and that's really good feeling.
Thank you, and congratulations again. JB?
All right, Larry, thank you so very much. Well, he may not have been thinking about Manny Pacquiao.